Grow 'em Big with Steve Bartylla. Brought to you by Huntworth and these other fine sponsors.
It must be getting a little tedious by now to listen to me drone on about how, guess what? It is pure and utter baloney that small property owners are wasting their time and money by going ahead and trying to improve their properties. That is so not the case. The reality is that the larger the acreage, the more your margin for error. The smaller the acreage, the smaller your margin. The truth of the matter is that small property manager is going to get so much more benefit from habitat improvement than that fat-pocketed guy or girl or organization with 5,000 acres of contiguous utopia. I've managed those 5,000 acre utopias. I can't screw them up if I try my hardest. That said, that 10 acre, oh man, I can mess that up in a day. 20 acres? Give me a day and a half. 40 acres, 2 days, I got that, so there ain't a deer want. The smaller that ground, the less your margin for error. Therefore, the more it doing things that increase our margin for actually benefits us disproportionately more. That said, holy man, are there ever some legitimate challenges to being that small property manager. As we've covered many times, there's only so many things that small property can do. Do you want, first off, yeah, it's ideal if you can get it to house those bucks, bed those bucks, feed those bucks, get those bucks to do the majority of breeding on that ground and all they're ready. Awesome. You ain't pulling that off on 40 acres. You ain't pulling that off on 80 acres. Okay. Instead, on the smaller that ground, the more you have to focus on what actually that property can produce. Is it a transition zone? Is it a buck trap? Or is it a bedding area? The smaller the ground, the more buy-in you have to have from the neighbors. But please, when you're doing that, always remember they have every right in the world to do whatever legal act they want on their side of the fence. If you have every right in the world to go ahead and improve your 20, 40, 80 acres to maximize its hunting potential, don't they have the right to do what legal acts they want on their side of the fence? Of course they do. So respecting that is mission critical, and that's where working with neighbors I see falls down over and over and over and over and over. One person wants to go more aggressive than the other. They convince the other to do it, and then the other doesn't end up going that aggressive, shoots a younger or smaller, and oh man, arms in the air, outrage, loud noises. That's a great way to ruin whatever advantages you can gain by working with those neighbors. They have the right to go ahead and do what they legally, and they have the right to change their minds. Okay. Try to get cooperatives. So, if you can go ahead and utilize your neighbor's land for access, for example, without messing them up, stuff like that, where it works to both of your advantage. The more you can work with your neighbors, don't get me wrong, it's important no matter how many acres you have. But the smaller that property is, the more you need to effectively work with your neighbors to meet those goals. Next, come up with some other places to hunt. That small property probably can't handle you hunting there day after day after day after day. The other issue is things always go wrong. If something can go wrong to mess up that hunting on that 10, 20, 40, 80 acre, 120 acre property, it's gonna happen. And it sure is nice when you have other places you can go. For whatever reason, and I'll tell you what, I have hunted public land in Canada. I have hunted public land in Minnesota. I've done it in Wisconsin. I've done it in Missouri. I've hunted public land all flipping over the place in the Midwest and points north. And I can tell you from my own experience, yeah, some of it's hunted pretty darn hard. But you know what? More of those public grounds than not, I have been able to find areas that I am left alone. Either they're too darn obvious, just that little 5-acre plot of brush right next to the road, surrounded by grass. Well, everybody's heading for the timber. Okay. Or it takes too much work to get to it. You got to go through a 7-year-old clear-cut regrowth that is such a pain to get through, it's not even funny, but you get to the backside and you got it all to yourself. There's that nasty, nasty, nasty gully and ridge you got to, but you get to the other side. By having other places to hunt, you not only take the pressure off your small property, but you give yourself options for when all of a sudden the cattle crash down the fence and you got 50 Holsteins on your property. When stuff like that happens, you need backups. Okay? And it is so easy to mess up that small property with stuff. Having those backups is good.
Final thoughts, brought to you by Huntworth.
There are all sorts of challenges to that small land hunter manager. You don't have that room for error. It is so easy for that property to be exploded, and you cannot do the management activities that somebody controlling 3,000 acres can on 40 acres. Well, you can, but they're not going to be very effective at all trying to do it all. Instead, laser focus on what you can control, what your property can achieve. Try to work with the neighbors as much as you can in the areas you agree, and respect the heck out of their rights in the areas you don't. And find some backup spots, because by finding backup spots to hunt, you spread yourself out more and you give yourself a margin for error.